Change begins from within. As easy as it is to look outside of ourselves and want the world to change, the truth is, it never will if we remain the same. This podcast was created for changemakers like you who want more love and connection in your community. Today, you are going to hear stories that will inspire you and also challenge you to be the change. We are going to go deep, my friend. So take a deep breath and settle in. My name is Leah Tamburini. Welcome to the Circle of Change. Hello, friend. Welcome back. Thanks for being here with us today. I know you're going to love our guest. She is a firecracker with a gorgeously big heart. There are so many nuggets of gold for you to find freedom and live your life fully in this conversation. Before I introduce you, I wanted to let you know that so many beautiful things have transpired since episode 31. I'm looking forward to sharing more next week when it's just you and I. But just to say that I so appreciate the empathy that you shared with me after the show. It warmed my heart to hear your stories and also feel so supported and cared for in this community. So thank you so much. I also want to say, in case you need to hear this today, that sometimes the best thing you can do is to let go and trust. It is scary as heck. And what I'm being reminded of again and again is there is support everywhere, and it will show up in miraculous ways when you get aligned with what it is you truly want. That's one reason I'm so excited about this circle today. We cover two big topics: transformation through grief and bringing your dreams to life in soul-nourishing ways. These two things are highly interconnected. We're joined by Malaine Leah Butler. She's a transformational business coach supporting purpose-driven leaders transform their business to prioritize family, what truly matters, and a life of financial freedom. Ah, that sounds amazing. Malaine has worked with thousands of leaders in the past 8 years to cultivate a life they truly love with a business that creates the wealth they desire. She's been featured in so many magazines, including Money Inc. and the Huffington Post, and she currently resides in New Zealand with her husband and children. As you are going to see in this episode, Malaine has this knack for clear communication that you can relate to and laugh about. Her powerful stories give all of us permission to buck the normative ways of being in this world, to be alive now. We get into an awesome reminder of how miraculous your life really is, how faith helped Malaine through a heartbreaking loss of a child. She shares a perspective of life's path that can free your heart from grief when you're ready. A transformational tool that will bring your dreams to life now. This tool is amazing. I have used it and I highly recommend it. And she drops some laugh out loud analogies to help you get unapologetically clear about what you want. You are definitely going to feel more alive at the end of this conversation. Welcome. Malaine, it's so great to be here with you in Circle of Change.
My pleasure. I'm just so excited to be here with you and see whatever conversation bubbles up and whatever comes through I know is completely divine. So I'm just excited to get into it.
So the listener knows Malaine and I first was introduced to Malaine in a summit called the New Human Summit and was so inspired by the way in which you showed up, the way in which you spoke, which I found very direct. And I like direct. And I think it's really what is needed in a lot of ways right now to really bring forward the transformation that this world is going through and that people I think are really seeking. But after that, we got to spend some time together one on one, and I got to experience your work. And I thought, oh my gosh, I really want this audience to experience you and what you're up to in the world. So, again, just thanks for being here.
My pleasure. And thank you for that feedback. I always say I'm originally from New Jersey and we're very direct on the East Coast of the States. I now reside in New Zealand, but I haven't lost that directness. And I couldn't agree with you more, Amy Leah. I really believe right now that the world needs truth, not sugar coated, Like, I think it is loving to speak from a really honest and direct place. And it doesn't need to mean that it's harsh or brutal or mean or rude or any of those things. I think it's really changing the narrative of that word direct. Because I think a lot of times when people hear, oh, direct, they're like, oh, she's harsh or she's really mean, or they have this stigma that gets attached to it. When really, when it comes from a space of love, being direct is the best way you can serve someone.
Yeah, it is the most loving way to be really in that moment. And it is about changing the perspective, which we can do. We're in control of that. So that's
Yeah,
so cool.
totally.
Oh, good. I can't wait to get into our conversation. To begin, I want to start by reading a poem. And this is a way for you and me and the person that's with us here in Circle to just settle into this space and be present with us. The poem is short and snappy, and I think direct, and it's called Alive. The author's name is Gary Boston. So if you'd like, take a deep breath and ground yourself here in this space, letting go of whatever it is that you have just come from. Alive. If you're wondering why you haven't accomplished great things, living, my friend, is a great thing too. I'm going to read that again. And if you're wondering why you haven't accomplished great things, living, my friend, is a great thing too. Yes, you nodding. What what's coming up for you?
Oh, so much. I love that. And, for those of you that don't know my background or my story or anything about me, probably because I might be a new face in your world. In 2021, my third son, Noah, passed away at 37 weeks. So he was stillborn, and it was from a cord accident, which I later found out is a huge percentage of stillbirths are from cord accidents. It is still a kind of rare thing, although, in the United States, 1 in 160 women will experience stillbirth. So that's kind of not really rare, but also not super common. So it was something that really threw me off course, being that it was my third pregnancy. I thought I knew what I was doing. I thought I knew everything. And of course, God had different plans. And so for me, alive and living and kind of the cosmic joke of what that all means just makes me chuckle a little bit. And yeah, like living is something that we get to be grateful for. And I think we take being alive, breathing, living on earth, having this experience as a spirit, having a human experience. I think a lot of us take it for granted, and we get really into the monotony of complaining, moaning, whining about what we don't have or what we want or what we really need or who we're angry at. And we lose, and all of that is depreciation for life. We lose the appreciation for life. So I think being alive in of itself is an accomplishment. And if you even look at the conception of life is like, oh my, I'm a transformational business coach, and I'm also a certified doula. And so I've done deep training in conception and pregnancy and all of the components on that continuum. And conception itself, it's like millions of sperm go for that egg, and everything is against it getting there. So it's like you have like a 30% chance every month of falling pregnant, which statistically is not really that high. And you're alive, which means that like you defied all of those statistics. And then you wake up, and I'm generalizing because it might not be you who's listening in, but a lot of people wake up and are like miserable that they're here, mad that they woke up again. And being alive is an accomplishment and is something that we get to relish in because nothing's promised.
Wow. Oh, I love I love the story of the sperm because I don't think I've ever thought of it that way, but it's so true. Like we were chosen. Like this being alive is such a gift. You're right. Generally, we're not celebrating that aspect on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah. Would say like majority of humans aren't celebrating it in the way they need to be. I think people in the personal development world, you and I, might get very tunnel visioned in that we think, oh yeah, well, we have gratitude practices. Everyone has a gratitude practice, or we do these things. But really, if we stand back and the world at large, a lot of people aren't celebrating life, aren't in the appreciation of who they are, and thankful for the fact that they were given breath today. Experiencing death so closely to me made me deepen that appreciation for life.
Yeah, and thank you for sharing that story with us today. I would love to understand more about your own personal journey. So, you had this very powerful event occur. What was life before that like for you? You obviously had a family already, things were going on, and then you had this moment, and then you've transitioned or grown into something else. Can you talk a little bit about that journey?
Yeah, sure. So, like I was saying to you guys earlier, I'm originally from the East Coast of the States. And so my journey kind of begins there on the East Coast. I lived in Manhattan for 7 years. And it was in Manhattan that I had my spiritual awakening, which sounds really cliche, but it was kind of cliche in the fact that, until that moment, I was really in the depths of addiction, alcohol abuse, drug abuse, bulimia, anything toxic. I basically was a Klingon for, like anything that wasn't good for you. I've tried it. I got the t-shirt and, been there, done that kind of thing. And I always say like Manhattan's kind of the Bunsen burner for addictions. Like if you have one brewing and you hang out there long enough, it'll come to the surface. And so it was there that I kind of had this spiritual awakening, or this moment where I believe I was shown grace and an opportunity to change. And I clung to that. I took that opportunity, and I had just a little bit of willingness to want to have a better life. And I knew, my life's not great. I don't hate my life, but I know I have more potential. I don't want to die with this potential I have in me. And that kind of massive shift that happened in 2013 for me allowed me to set on a path of health and well-being for sure, but a deeper connection spiritually to a higher power, which I choose to call God. And that led me to everything up into this moment. And I share from that point of that story because it was in 2013 that I started really developing this deep faith and this strong relationship with God, this unwavering faith in that, trusting the process and trusting that the universe has my back and that the world is working out in my favor and that everything is for me, nothing is against me. And then also listening to the signs and the intuitive hits that were coming through. And in 2015, I got a hit to sell all my belongings and to travel, which scared me. I did not have a lot of savings. I did not have a lot of money at that time. I had just started my business, which now is nearly, 8 years in the making. But I sold all my things. I listened to that intuitive hit. I traveled. I explored over 9 countries within an 18-month span all by myself. It is where I ended up meeting my husband in New Zealand and settling down. So I've been here since 2016 and haven't looked back. And then we've created a family together, So prior to my son Noah's passing, I have a stepson, Cameron. We had our first child, Jack, in 2018, our second child, Liam, in 2019, at the end of 2019. All of my life was starting to come together from 2013, like being like, well, not sure. And it was like, wow, things are really evolving. This is a life beyond my wildest dreams. Like, this is really a creation that I didn't even know was a possibility. It just kept getting bigger and better. And again, my relationship with God, my intuitive muscle, if you will, was ever evolving. That was something that was a deep practice of mine, developing intimacy with that spiritual connection and always acting on the soul guidance, the intuitive guidance. I like to say soul is the direct connection to God. So listening to whatever soul was telling me to do. Because of that practice, because of all of those years, because of that muscle being so strong, when my son did pass, I knew I was going to be okay. I knew that life was going to change and that it was going to look vastly different, but I wasn't scared. Of course, I was sad and I was grieving and I was upset and I was angry and all of those different emotions that you experience when you lose a loved one. And I'm sure everyone listening in can relate because at some point, something that is 100% inevitable is that everyone's going to die. And so at some point, you're going to lose a loved one, and while it's sad and devastating and tragic and all of those things, it is something that is certain. And so having gone through that experience and having the experience that I had in my life of cultivating such a deep faith and a deep spiritual connection, I knew that the feelings wouldn't last and that I knew that whatever was to come, I would be okay. I would be supported. So I'd say that what happened is I just became a better version of myself because I understood the meaning of unconditional love. Loving a child on earth is one thing. Try loving a child in spirit as well. It just breaks all barriers and opens your heart in these, ways that I've never experienced as a human. And so I'm grateful for my son because he's given me these profound experiences that I never wanted. But now that I have, I'm like, oh, okay, I understand unconditional love. I understand what it means to cling on to faith like your life depends on it. I understand to trust the process. I think my patience has deepened now. My appreciation for things has strengthened. My appreciation for life, my appreciation for my kids when my kids are freaking out or having a meltdown. Before I might have been patient to a point. Now I just have patience unlimitedly because I'm like, they're alive. I don't care if they're having a meltdown. They're here. Like I'm grateful that they have breath. So it's just allowed me to evolve as a person, as a spirit into the best version of myself. I don't know if everyone can say that. I know a lot of people have been through this experience, and I think it can do two things to people. And I think any tragedy can kind of do two things to people. It can either depreciate your life or appreciate. And really, the choice is yours. You get to decide whether you want to choose appreciation or depreciation when an experience occurs.
Oh, I love that you brought that aspect up because a question that was bubbling up for me was like, what did you have to do or what had to change in you for you to choose the path that you did? I don't know if you look at it that way, but for people that are in that decision point, and I can relate a lot in that my own journey was actually like a bit of a similar trajectory in that I had a really painful relationship breakup. It was the third in a row. And I was like, oh, like this doesn't feel good. This is a pattern. I don't want to keep doing it. I also had addiction in my life at that point, and then made the decision to start doing my work, my spiritual journey, which for me is a journey inward to get to know myself and how I'm showing up. And then that was all going great. And I moved and all these things. And then I started my business, which was definitely a soul project. And then I got diagnosed with cancer, stage 3. And so in that moment, again, that was the choice where I could become a victim and be like, why me? Or I could really see it for what it was for me, which was an opportunity to deepen my relationship with myself, my relationship with spirit, with the divine energy. And that has changed everything for me. And I would say, much more alive today than I am before. So maybe is the question what differentiates those that choose one path or over the other, or what was required of you to choose the path that you did?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. And it also baffles me in that I don't know why some people don't choose to appreciate life even after tragedy, and while other people tend to just cling and then it sucks them down, like, and you'll see it in your life. You probably have experiences, and I'm saying you to everyone that's listening in, you'll have experiences where you'll see people around you experience tragedy and they'll choose different paths of how they handle it. And let's be clear, there's no judgment here. Like, not one way is right and not one way is wrong. Not one way is good and not one way is bad. But how I like to look at it is, what's the best way that's going to empower me to live and be alive and to appreciate life? And that choice for me is to see life as a miracle still, to see everything from, I like to say, like the lens of God, to see everything with love, to see everything with appreciation and gratitude. And by the way, it's not an easy choice. There's some days where I'm like, much rather choose something different. But how I like to look at it is this, and it was kind of I like to say it's like the Jersey girl, like toughness in me a little bit. But I had this moment where I was like, my son didn't die for me to die and still be living. He didn't die to make me hate life and be angry and pissed off and to talk about it in a way where it's unfair and I'm not diminishing anyone's experience who might be in that place, because I think grief goes in stages and places for each person. But I was like, my son didn't choose to die so that I'm, dying but still existing. That didn't happen. He is a soul that had an experience. And I read this book, which gave me the deepest peace and really supported my spiritual evolution. And the book is called Home with God in a Life That Never Ends. And that's by Neil Donald Walsh. And by the way, all of his books are fabulous. Conversations with God, all of them. I worked one on one with him. Coincidentally, I had booked to work one on one with him prior to my son passing. So I really believe it was my son Noah kind of setting me up and making sure I had all the guidance and the tools I needed. And after our first call, Neil suggested this book. He said, this book's going to help you. And it was literally like elixir for my soul. It was literally like just pouring, the antidote onto my soul. And basically in that book, something that it states, and these are like truths or remembrances, as he calls them, that he suggests that people that have experienced death of a loved one or tragedy of someone passing, that they not explore this until a year in. He said, if you explore this too early and you're not ready to receive it, you might get really angry at these quote unquote remembrances or truths. But because I was so inquisitive and he felt like, yeah, I think you're ready, I was like exploring this 3 months after my son died, and one of the things that the remembrances say is that every soul chooses the time, the place, and the way they die. Nothing is by accident. Nothing is haphazard. Everything is an experience that the soul wants to have. No life is ever cut too short. That didn't make me angry. That actually gave me peace. And I was like, oh, yes, I chose to experience this as a soul for reasons that I'm still uncovering. But my son chose this too. His life wasn't cut short. He fulfilled everything he needed to within 37 weeks. Who's to say it takes 37 years, 97 years, 2 weeks, 10 weeks? Like, who's to say how long the soul needs to fulfill their destiny of what they came to experience? When we say, oh, that person's life was cut short, that's a tragedy. What we're saying is that soul was wrong for choosing that path. And that would be incorrect. The soul chooses the path tragedy is actually our judgment on something we think is wrong, which is powerful, and that gave me peace. I forget what the original question was, Amelia, but I just felt like really compelled to go on that tangent of sharing that because that's really what gave me peace and being able to feel empowered and move forward. I think it was around choice and to be able to choose appreciation every day because I recognize my son chose this path just as much as I did. And so to say his death is a tragedy or a mistake or unfair is actually implying that he's wrong for choosing that path. And I don't think he was wrong.
Oh, I just know that what you just shared with us is going to be so freeing, liberating for somebody listening today, and I'm so grateful that you shared that. Thank you.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, I think coming from someone that has experienced their child dying, it's not like me speaking hypothetically or what I would do if I experienced it. Like I'm going through it. So I know the raw and real feelings that come up, and I'm not discrediting them. But when that person's ready to be at peace, read that book because it'll just be a game changer.
Beautiful, and we'll put that in the show notes, so thank you for sharing that resource. I wanna switch focus a little bit. You're a transformational business coach. You have a focus on financial freedom for folks, getting them to really dive into and embrace what truly matters in their life. And there's a family focus as well to the work that you do. And that's the piece I'm curious about. Like what is it about family and how are you working with people around their families, I guess, to really bring them to be alive in their lives?
What I call myself is a transformational business coach. And what I support people in doing is transforming their business so that they can prioritize family, a life that they love, and curate financial freedom from that. And so the reason I'm really passionate about family is because I believe that people that have family, whether mother, father, parental units, however that looks, single parents, double parent, however that looks in relationship to the family unit, because family unit is so beautiful nowadays, right? Like it can look so different than that traditional structure that we were so used to seeing all those years ago. So, however that looks, it's really helping people have the business work for them in relationship to a family as opposed to taking away from the family unit. I grew up in a family where my father worked his tail off and I hardly saw him, like he was always at the important things. I will say that. Like he always made effort to be at all of my field hockey or lacrosse games. He was always at the awards ceremony, but he wasn't there on the day to day. And I know that that's something now that he looks back and it's not that he regrets, but I think he just wishes it could have been different. But for him, there wasn't another paradigm available. And that was all he knew, right? He worked in the hospitality industry and a restaurant where his parents worked and their parents worked and their parent, so he didn't know any different. And so having lived in that paradigm of what it feels like for a parent to not be able to be present is something that really was a driver for me. Family has always been a really core value of mine in business. Even prior to becoming a mother, it was something that kind of drove me to seek a career because I knew family was going to be in my future. So I was always looking for a career that would be able to work in conjunction with a family. I didn't really see a lot of models out there for me. I didn't really see a lot of examples. I always hired coaches that were mothers to kind of learn, how are you doing it? What do I want to take away from you? And what do I not like? I'll give that back. And so having been in the personal development world for, many years, nearly a decade and running my own practice, I've transitioned to many titles. And this kind of latest one is really supporting people to curate and create space for family first and foremost, and creating a life that they desire with that family, one that is a financial freedom, and making the business work around that. So I give them different tools and resources, both internally and externally, to create the business that works in conjunction with that and doesn't take away or compromise. I think the biggest complaint a lot of parents have is that there's never enough time. They're always stretched for time. I only work 2 days a week, like today I'm having this amazing conversation with Amy Leah, and that's it. Like most of my days are wide open and free. I have maybe one or two calls or something like that, but I only work two, solid days, because the rest of the time is for family and creating a life I want. It's not just family. I always say, and creating a life that you desire. So having self-care days, or hanging out with friends, or going for walks, or whatever that looks like. So I help people design a business in that new paradigm that doesn't compromise or make them have to sell their soul in order to make money.
Oh, hallelujah. I love it. I love it. You're such a good guide for folks on this journey. And absolutely, I can relate a lot to your story again of the paradigm that you grew up with. And that was the same for mine as well. And it's nice to see that we're shifting into something different. There's new possibilities being created, and it's uncomfortable. And so to be able to work with somebody like yourself and be guided on that path and encouraged and cheered on is just a beautiful thing.
Thank you. Yeah, I agree. I agree.
You mentioned tools, and I would love it if you're able to quickly dive into maybe one of the tools you give. I wrote down vision scripting because that was a tool you gave me, and I thought it was so powerful. And if there's another tool that you feel called to share, feel free. Go ahead.
The vision scripting is super powerful, and I know in our session that we had, I had shared that tool with you, and it's something that time and time again I've used for business, family vision, any desire that I've wanted to bring to life. I've really gone in and done vision scripting. And so for people listening in, what vision scripting is basically kind of what it sounds, right? What's a script? Well, a script is something that in a play or in a movie, the director would give you a script to read off of, so that you know exactly what part to play, what your role is. You're the lead actor or actress in your play called life. And a lot of times you're just haphazardly moving through life. There's no intention, direction, etc. Now, in vision scripting, what I like to say is we're laying out the intention. We're setting out a script that's really specific to support you in bringing to life the life that you want to live. And we're also leaving room for magic to happen, for miracles to happen, for the universe to make it even bigger or better, etc. Right? So I like to say this or something better. And a lot of times when you set that intention, something even better comes into the space because you've left some room for it. For instance, we could do a general one. What's your vision for 2022? How do you want it to unfold? Not based in reaction to what's going on externally, not based on what's happening in the world right now. No, none of that matters. You get to decide exactly what you want. You're like, oh, I want to travel, but no, if you want to travel, period. I get to travel, I want to do something. Oh, but no, get rid of those buts, right? And so standing from December 31st, 2022, write out exactly how this year unfolds to the T, to how you feel every morning when you're getting up, to, how your desires come to life specifically, not just like, and then more money is made, and then I meet the man of my dreams, and then I have a child, and then, like that's very general and vague. And if I were to hand, let's say, Brad Pitt the script up and it says, Brad makes more money. And he's like, well, how do I, how do I act that out? Brad makes more money. It's like every morning when Brad gets up, he's excited and he's happy and he's joyful. And it's just his energy is so magnetic that it's inevitable that money, specifically $10,000 a month, start to flow through it with ease for him through his job of da 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 and his other residual income of da 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 da. Like those specifics and writing that out. And then what I had given Amy Leah is saying, like, write that out and then go back and make it bigger and then go back and make it a little bigger. And then record yourself telling the story and listen to that in the morning. First thing in the morning, it's really going to help you start to reprogram your subconscious. So your subconscious is there's like a little window or threshold of it being awake right when you get up and right as you're about to fall to sleep. So if you listen to the recording of you saying it, it's really powerful because it's your own voice. It's not someone else telling you. I have my clients do this for, as I said, I've incorporated a doula certification into my repertoire of things. And you think, well, how does that have anything to do with business? But a lot of the women I work with, they become pregnant or early in the motherhood stage, etc. And they don't know how to transition the business in relationship to being pregnant. So a lot of vision scripting that we do is how they want their pregnancy to unfold or their birth or how their business feels and looks in conjunction with them transitioning into maternity leave, etc. And it's so powerful. So many women that I work with come back and are like, oh my God, it happened exactly as I said, but even better. I'm like, yeah, because you finally set the intention of what you wanted. And it's just like, imagine you guys, when you go into a restaurant, you don't go in and go, I don't like French fries or salad. And, the waitress or waiter is like, the server is like, okay, I have okay, cool. So I'll just put a burger in for you. And then they come out and you're like, I'm vegan. And they're like, you just told me you didn't like fries or salads. Like, I didn't know what else to put in. And that's what we're doing a lot of times with the universe. We're just being really vague. And we're like, the universe should know what we want. It has no idea. You have to be so specific and place those orders of what you desire and by when.
I love it. Your use of analogies is fabulous, by the way. It's so great.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
I feel like analogies help bring it into layman's terms and to just really simplify it. I think that a lot of personal development coaches and spiritual teachers just get a little bit too wordy and esoteric and it makes them look smart, but you also are like, I still don't kind of understand what they're saying. Whereas these things just make it really simple. I'm not here to look smart. I'm just here to make it land for you so that you can apply it in your life.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. Oh, thank you. Thank you for sharing about vision scripting. We'll also put a link because you have a program that people can take to walk them through this process. So thanks for that.
You're so welcome.
So, in closing, this podcast is essentially about helping people to be the change that the world needs right now and that they need for themselves. And I'm understanding that that means different things to different people. And so I like to ask the beautiful folks that come into this circle what that means to them. So, Malaine, what does being the change mean to you?
I used to have that quote from Gandhi that said, be the change you wish to see in the world on the side of my fridge when I was living in Manhattan for years, like just really big. What that really means to me, being the change, is not so much speaking about what you're going to do and the visions that you have and talking about it with everyone. Oh, yeah, these are my plans, but taking action towards bringing it to life. That makes a big difference between leaders and people. So if you're someone listening in, the likelihood of you being a leader is a higher probability because you're taking time to better yourself, to support yourself and wanting to change and wanting to evolve. So being the change means to me, taking the action in accordance with bringing your vision for the world to life, being the light, being the difference through action, not through spoken word. Because it only goes so far. You can say, oh, I love you, I love you, I love you, right? To someone that you love. But if you're never there for them, if you don't show up, if you're not a safe space for them to speak, if you're not creating things via action, it's just words. And words are meaningless if not backed by action. So yeah, maybe saying it, but backing it by action.
Yeah, thank you.
So welcome. Powerful question. And great reminder.
Thank you so much, Malaine, for joining us today and sharing your very powerful stories and your wisdom and some of the tools that you use. I'm in deep gratitude to know that you're here and living your life fully and courageously stepping into life in ways that are bold, but that are bringing something bigger to life. And not only for yourself, but for those that you serve, your family, the people you serve in your business, the people you are around in your community. So thank you so much.
You're so welcome. It's been a pleasure. I love conversation in general. I love dialogue with someone else that is up to big things and looking to create change. So it's been a pleasure. So thank you for creating the space for me to be here.
I'm now passing the talking piece to you. If you feel called to put your voice in the circle, please head to humconsulting.ca/podcast and share your story there. I cannot wait to hear what has come up for you as you have listened to what has been shared here today. I wish you love and joy beyond your wildest imagination. Thank you so much for being here in the Circle of Change. I also want to express my gratitude to the following peeps. Circle of Change is recorded on Lekwungen territories, and I am so grateful to live on this land. Our opening and closing music was created by the talented E-Roll Beats. You can find his creations at erollbeats.com. And special thanks to my coach, Mary Chan of Organized Sound Productions, for bringing this podcast to life. Until next time, ciao.